Hi everyone, welcome to Time and Tide. We've got Baume Mercier for you today, and we'll take a short look at what the brand is and what kind of positioning they find themselves in today, and we'll focus on the Hampton pieces released at this year's Watches and Wonders. The brand known today as Baume Mercier was founded in 1830 as Frères Baume by two brothers, before eventually becoming Baume Mercier through a merger in 1918. They were early recipients of the Poinçon de Genève Prize, and they became known for their dual register chronographs before eventually developing their Phi logo, which was based on their mid-century designs, 50s and 60s. They were also early adopters of quartz with the release of the Riviera in 1973 with that, at the time, very novel integrated bracelet design in stainless steel. Today, the brand focuses most on the entry to mid-level luxury, though they do offer some higher complicated pieces in precious metals. With the Hampton, it's a watch based on Art Deco. You can see it with these architectural lugs and the rectangular shape of the case. It became really notable with the Pierre Soulages limited edition, the blacked out with very sort of textured dial design. These are definitely a bit more toned down from that. They'll be easier to wear everyday pieces, so let's get into them. The two pieces that we've got for you today are the Hampton Classique and the Hampton Dual Time. The Classique measures in at 27.4mm across, 42.8mm lug to lug, and 10.1mm in height. You've got a stainless steel case with 50 meters of water resistance, and it's powered by the ETA 2671 movement for about 38 hours of power reserve. The Dual Time here offers a bit more than the Classique, which is a very simple design. We've got a Dual Time feature and a big date feature as well. This is powered by the Sopra TT651, which is based on the ETA 2892 with those two additional features built on top. As far as the case dimensions, we've got 31mm across, 46.1mm lug to lug, and 11.1mm in height. On the wrist then, how do these exactly wear? Because it's quite a common theme for rectangular cases to be slightly deceiving in their dimensions with this sort of 27mm diameter suggesting a very small case. The Hampton Classique here very much follows that. It offers quite a bit of wrist presence with the 46.8mm lug to lug. This middle portion of the case is seemingly suspended between the two shoulders that continue into the curved lugs. I almost compare them to talons, even though they're quite blunt at their ends. This leads us on to this really wonderful thick weave Milanese bracelet. While it doesn't fall straight down from the case, as I would normally prefer with a lot of bracelets on my small 6.1-inch wrist, it does wrap around it quite nicely. Next up, the Dual Time. Much larger case in this case, pun fully intended there, and an increase in thickness as well. This strap is also quite interesting because it's actually partially shrouded by this case, and especially while it's sitting on the wrist, it makes it look like it's almost integrated into the case, even though you can easily remove it with the quick release system. As far as the case itself goes, it's a very similar story to the smaller Classique, though just at a sized up diameter. These dials really do remind me again, Art Deco. It's very architectural. The applied indices extend from the edges of the dial to the middle, almost like steel beams that hold it in suspension above this grain texture. So this grain texture in between the indices, there's not necessarily a pattern to it. It's quite irregular, but it's not too visible. It just gives a bit of visual interest to an otherwise very simple dial. Speaking of visual interest, the Dual Time is full of it. Just below the Baume Mercier branding, you've got this large dual display date window, which actually has a really interesting operation. The leftmost date disc increments even though there's no change between the number itself. So it would go from 1 to 1 again, and then to 2, and then to 2 again. I guess it's just a small quirk of this movement. It doesn't really affect the operation, but something I just found really interesting. So to sort of sum these up, who are these watches for and where do they stand in Baume Mercier's lineup? I mean, they're a take on a proven design, the Art Deco squared off rectangular case. I'm sure you'll be able to think of other examples that take inspiration from that design period. Baume Mercier really took no risks when designing the Hampton, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. I can easily see these watches being everyday warriors that, have both dressing up and dressing down potential, especially once you see it on two different strap options. Price-wise, I mean, mean, with a brand like Baume Mercier, you've got years and years of watchmaking heritage, one of the oldest brands that are registered from the canton of Geneva. On the slight con side, I guess, like many other brands in this space, they have been pushing their prices up, resulting in $6,400 for the Dual Time and $4,200 for the Classique here on my wrist. So to sum these up really, I think Baume Mercier clearly paid a lot of attention to the design of the Hampton without over-designing it, which is a common trope that we do see. So what do you think about Baume Mercier? Is that a brand that you might consider for yourself in the future? Let us know in the comments. And always, like if you like and subscribe.